You're listening to the Custom Built Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to discuss money. So stay tuned. Money, right? We got to discuss this when it comes to your home renovations because it obviously is what drives us forward in our renovation, right? You don't have the money, you can't do the work. So we really got to touch on this. I'm not going to tell you how to budget it exactly or where to get your funds. I can give you a few ideas, but ultimately it's a lot about just knowing your budget, knowing where you can, like, how far you can get this budget to stretch, how to use this money the best way, how to prepare. I've talked about this before, so preparing for any surprises that you might not expect. So just how can we get this money to go as far as possible with the least amount of mistakes and making sure that when it comes to our money, we're being smart about it. So where do we start? You got to know your budget before you even start diving into what you're going to do. So you might have really big plans for your house, or maybe like a future home or a project. For example, we've been living in this 1960s house, and it's very 1960s still. The original owner, you could see their handwritten notes on the back of our pantry door. So we are very much living in a half modern, half still in the 60s house right now. So we haven't renovated completely because we're doing this step by step. There's some other factors in there other than just budget, but it mostly comes down to me being indecisive, which is not really my forte. I'm very decisive for the most part. But when it comes to making this decision about what we're doing in our house, man, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am when it comes to that because it's really overwhelming. So I'm with you when it comes to making decisions and this decision fatigue, because it can really stop your job, right? Or any progress. And just for example, we're working on our kids' room. They have their own room, but they've been sharing the same room for almost a year now. So instead of having one room, basically a storage room for one kid, and then the other room is where they sleep and play, we're going to separate the rooms and make one into this cozy corner. And if you've been following Instagram, you can see some of the progress coming along. And so in this cozy corner, this room had, when we first moved here, this is where the room that they shared at first. So they actually did share this room first. So we had a crib because our son was really little still. He was only 1. And then our daughter at the time was 3. So it was good for them. And then we made loft beds. So our son, we turned the bottom one into bunk beds. So we turned the bottom bunk into a toddler floor bed, which we really loved doing, keeping them on the ground because he was a climber anyway. So we weren't worried about him falling out. And then our daughter was big enough and strong enough to climb safely up and down. So they had their little bunk beds. And then we moved some rooms around because indecisive me didn't know what we were doing with our new house. And so we moved her out, put her into another room. And so we had to deconstruct their bunk beds. And then we ended up making a loft bed for her in what is now our office, where I am now. So we put a bunk bed or a loft bed in here. And then we took this down and moved her into another room and then made a loft bed for our son in their original room. And now here we are again, making loft beds that will accommodate for both of them. So they're going to basically come into an L and it'll be great. So why am I telling you all of this? It's this indecisiveness is just not conducive for creating a space that's calming, or, it's this indecisiveness that keeps us from working forward in our home doing other projects. Because if we didn't spend hours and hours and hours and days and days and days making 4 different loft beds throughout the last almost 5 years now that we've been in this house, then maybe we'd have a little bit more work done. So know what you want to do and know what your budget's going to be. And knowing your budget is important. It's either money that you saved up for this project. So however you get this money, it's just, that's important to know. Because so if it's money that you saved up, you only have that much, right? Unless you're willing to go get a loan, you can get a personal loan. If you have equity in your house, you can do a HELOC loan. So those are great too. That's a great option. It's a home equity line of credit. So however you're getting your money, that's something you could talk with your financial advisor or, your bank, whoever you feel comfortable. I am not your finance person to talk to about this, okay? But know what your budget is and know, like, if you have a HELOC, but you only want to use X amount of dollars, if you go higher, are you going to be able to pay for those extra payments? And same goes for any loans. You just don't want to put yourself into like the situation where you can no longer afford the house that you're trying to build. And so know what you want, know your budget. And then when you make that budget, put 10% minimum aside, like I was telling you last week, for that contingency because you just don't know what you might find. And that includes new houses. I mean, I've seen plenty of new houses here. We have them all over Charleston. And I can't tell you how many of them had water damage because the plumbing wasn't done properly. So you just don't know. So if there's a plumbing leak, even in a new house, you don't know if you're going to find some wood rot or mold or something that you just need to take care of. Older houses, you're running into a lot higher risks with building materials like asbestos and lead. And again, you just want to be prepared. So money is important, and money, knowing where it's coming from and knowing how much you could set aside and knowing the age of your house. Okay. And then the other part of money is the part where we all have some kind of weird attachment with money. We all have our mindset blocks for it. So this would be a really good time before you really dive into it to understand if you're doing it by yourself, knowing yourself and what money means to you, how you react around money. Does it stress you out? Does it ebb and flow and you're just like, I know it's going out, it's going to come back in, we're good, we're groovy? Are you really tight with your little money bag strands, straps? So are you kind of like a Scrooge McDuck in that, like where you're really trying to, cut the corners and save a dime? And that we'll talk about that because that's important. So just knowing though how you are around money. If you have a partner that's joining you in this, it's good to know how you react and how they react, what your expectations are around that budget and money. Like, are you a little bit, like I said, are you a little bit tighter on the strands? And then your partner's like, let's go in. This is our once in a lifetime. Let's spend the money. It'll make sense later. You want to know these things before you're going in because home renovations are, it's not just like slinging a hammer and it's like bing, bang, done. Like, this is an emotional roller coaster, especially when we're talking in the terms of this being your home. Like if you've been living in it for a while and your stuff is everywhere, you have a routine, you have a way of moving about your day, your life is going to be just turned upside down because you're not going to be in the same routines. You're going to have boxes everywhere. You're going to have your things in different places. There's going to be a lot of disruption. So you're already going to be in a stressful place because you're in a home renovation. So when you don't understand how you move around money and what your mindset is around money, now you're going to be putting on that extra stress, or how your partner also handles that. You don't want to be fighting over money, right? It's not that important. So, and maybe it is though for you, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like we all have different outlooks and we all have our money blocks, and me included. Like we just need to understand how we move around it. And so knowing that will come a long way for how you move about through your project. And when I mentioned earlier about cutting, saving a dime, you really, really want to be careful with that. So I would say if you're going to have new drywall, new paint, and you're hiring somebody for a lot less money than like the competitors, because I'm going to assume that if you're going to be doing the work, you're interviewing a few different crews, different contractors, whether you're contracting them individually, like you're hiring your own drywallers and then you hire somebody else to do X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. But if you hire like one general contractor and they have a whole crew, I hope you're interviewing at least multiple general contractors that are doing the same type of operations. So however you're hiring it out, just make sure you're interviewing multiple people of that same, what they offer. And then this way you can understand then if somebody seems a little high and if someone seems a little low. And just because they're charging high doesn't mean you're getting the best quality. It just means they're charging high, and that's okay. You want to see their work. So if you're cutting corners because you want to save a dime, that will come back and bite you in the booty later on. So if you're hiring somebody to do your drywall and paint, and again, if you followed along my cozy corner, you could see the not so great drywall repair that we did, if you want that kind of quality and you're okay with that, I mean, hire the lower cost drywaller and painter because that's the quality you're going to get, really. If that kind of quality is not okay for you in your house, then hire somebody that shows up and does a lot better work. And it matters when it comes to how much you're paying somebody. So if you nickel and dime them all the way down to this lower budget, they're probably not going to show up as their best because they're like, you know what, I just want this job, and if this person wants to pay me this much, I'm going to give them this much quality of work. My point is, you want to make sure that you're hiring people appropriately and not just trying to nickel and dime them and bring down the best. You don't want the lowest cost person just because you want to make sure your budget goes far. You can figure out ways that your budget can go a lot further in like your finishes. So you don't always have to get like the high end quality finish. I mean, unless you're like really building like this like $1 million home, I would say at that point your budget's probably a little bit different than somebody that's, working on $100,000 home. That doesn't mean your quality is different. Okay. I want to make that super duper clear. That was like one of those things in our reconstruction, we saw a wide variety of houses, right? Like fires and natural disasters don't discriminate on the quality or the age or the price of your home or what's inside your home. Okay. They don't care. Natural disasters or flooding, whatever, it's going to hit your home, and it doesn't matter what kind of home you have. So when you have crews coming in, it was really important for me to set that expectation that to these crews, like, I don't care if this is $100,000 house or if this is $1 million house that you're working on like Kiowa Island. You're going to treat these people's home as their home, and you're going to be respectful for it, and you're going to put in your quality of work because that's what counts. And so that's another really great viewpoint maybe to look at when you're hiring and talking about budgets and the quality of work that you're expecting from your contractors is fine. Like I think we can really understand if somebody really takes pride in their work. Okay. So if you can just feel that pride, I think you're going to be in good shape. If you hire somebody that feels like they're proud of their work and they're a little bit lower cost than somebody that's charging a little bit higher, but they're a little bit more arrogant about their work. Like, you just want to really gauge that. I think a lot of it is really intuitive and like making sure you're lining up and matching with the right people. And I think it's really important to listen to that. I think we're taught from a very young age that we can't trust ourselves or, the inner voice that we have. So trust your instincts when it comes to that kind of stuff. If you're feeling a little ick around it, it's probably not a good fit. And that's going to be the same for hiring somebody that's at a lower cost versus a higher cost, and knowing what their values are and what they respect when it comes to the end of the job. So know your budget. Don't try to cut corners and nickel and dime your contractors. You want to make sure that you guys are all in agreement. And when you're going over the work that you want to accomplish with your contractors, they can also help give you a real scope of what you can and can't do. So maybe you want like this amazing built-in shower that's like tile, like almost like a wet bath. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a giant bath area that has the tub and the shower all in one area, and you want this high-end tile, but your budget doesn't allow for it. Maybe there's different ways that you can come up with solutions to get something similar to that, or you spend all your money on that and you make it happen, and then you wait until you can finish the rest of it. I mean, there's just going to be this push and pull of making sure you're making the right decisions and make sure you understand what's important for you. But I'm not saying like go and buy like the cheapest faucet and the cheapest materials that you can get just so you can get the look. You still want that quality, and you will find different qualities when you're going to like big box stores versus like a smaller local area that might be selling tile, because they are going to show you, they're going to have their lots, like the manufacturer and their lot numbers from when those tiles were made. And they're going to be able to look up when you bought those type of tiles. And this is like smaller stores. This isn't like those big box ones, because they don't care. They're just getting them in, they're going out, they're going in, they're coming out. And so you're going to see a lot of variety in there. You might have like, really white tile. If it's like multicolors, you might have like one really white one. You might have a little bit of cream one. They might be skewed. They might not be super straight. And the quality of that tile is going to be very different than if you're going to a tile shop that's able to keep quality check on the type of lots that they come in, the manufacturers, and they're going to keep records of that. So then if your tile does break or you had a water issue and you had to go replace those tiles, you'll have better luck at going to that little tile shop and having them look up who you used, what lot you used, where that you might be able to find that same thing. But that might be something that we want to talk on another time, because that's about purchasing a little bit extra with buildings, just so if anything does happen, you have a little bit of tile to work with. But I digress a little bit, because all of this is so important. These are things that just pop up in your while you're going through these renovations, and sometimes it's just not things you think about until you're really in the middle of it. And I'm sure there's lots of things that I still need to explore and experience myself, but these are a lot of things that I've run into over my years of project managing restoration jobs. So, like I said, natural disasters, so fires, water damage, mold. The effects that these things have on a home is just really crazy. And I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, I've brought a whole half of a house all the way down to the ground and had to rebuild it up because it wasn't built properly, because they wanted to save the money instead of hiring the right people. And in the long run, their insurance wouldn't cover it. So these are things that you really want to consider and be really mindful and thoughtful about how you spend your money and how you use your money. So if you're really have an issue with money and you want to hold on to it really tight, I'm not saying don't do that and don't be mindful when you're going through your project, but also just know who you are around money and how you act around it. So that way you can maybe better prepare yourself for the things that are going to show up, and maybe try not to stress so much. But let's get back to the contractors, because if you have a good contractor, they're going to lay it all out for you. They're going to give you your budget. So you say, I have $100,000 to do whatever this is that I want to do in my house. How can we make this happen? Is this realistic? And where do we need to start for this? And that's something that a contractor that knows what they're doing should be able to help you. And if they've done a lot of work in that area and they're familiar with, I say this in, most builders are going to know how far a budget can go, but there's going to be a lot of difference if you're using a new contractor to the area versus a contractor that's been in the area for a long time. Because if a contractor that's been in the area for a long time might have really great connections and might be able to find really great deals, where somebody that's new to the area might not know the local costs of things. They might not know how much an actual plumber costs in this area, and they might be contracting them. So their relationships might not be as strong as somebody that's had a long ties. And I'm not saying don't take your chance on somebody that's new to your area. Again, this is just something to think about when you're hiring who you're hiring for your project. These are all big, important things, and they will affect your jobs in different ways. And so it's just good to, see it in like the smaller pictures and the smaller pieces, but then seeing it in the big picture where you can understand, hey, this person is somebody that's worked here a long time. Are they stuck in their ways, or are they adaptable? Right? So that's also important. You want to make sure that, if that's important to you, you got somebody that's flexible and wants to find answers and solutions, and not like stuck in a way that's like, this is impossible, we can't do it. I mean, I'm not all about that, and maybe that's just my outlook in life in general. I am solution based. So if you're coming to me with a problem, I hope you're coming to me with some ideas on how to fix it. And I think that was really something that I valued in the trades that I used to work with directly when I would do these. If somebody came to me with a problem and just was like, this is the problem, it's all yours now, I didn't enjoy working with them that much. I tried to keep the same trades with me while I was going through these projects, especially the ones that want to be more solution based, because if they're solution based, that means they care. And then that also means that they're here to collaborate with me, and let's try to find out something together. And we're all busy, right? Like at that point, I'm running 20 plus jobs. They're running 20 plus jobs. They got a lot of crews that they need to worry about. I got a lot of people I got to worry about. And so when we're running all these jobs at once and you have somebody that's just coming to you with problems and issues, I mean, it's not a fun environment. It's not collaborative. It is more stressful, and it's just more work, and it's unnecessary work. So if you don't want to have that type of atmosphere around your project, I think it's important to know and listen to the contractor that you are interviewing. Are they going to be somebody that is solution based, or are they somebody that's going to tell me there's a problem and that, now we're spending time and energy and money around figuring out a solution when, maybe they have one, especially if this isn't something that you do all the time. So, for me, it was like, this is annoying. I had to figure this out like all by myself. Let me talk to other people and see what we can do. Whereas somebody that's never been through a home renovation before, if you have somebody coming to you and say, there's a problem, I mean, what do? You got to do a lot of research. You got to reach out to other people. And now again, money and time really are hand in hand. So anything that's going to take more time and take you off your timeline is going to affect your budget. It's going to affect it's just going to affect your timeline. It's going to and your budget. I mean, that's the bottom line when it comes to it. If they're slacking and it's harder to get these crews back onto the jobs once, you hit a lull. So again, time and money, it's all tied together. And so solution-based people are really, somebody I really highly suggest. I understand that by not knowing the ins and outs of a project, or at least understanding like how projects can work typically, how do you come up with solutions if you don't know how it works? But there's always ways, right? You always can come up with solutions. So you can ask for more clarity around something, and maybe having a little bit more clarity will give you an idea. And sometimes having an outside view really gives us a better option of somebody that's been in it and they're too close to it. So have you ever like worked on a project or like a painting and you're getting really frustrated and you're like, this isn't what I wanted, and you realize that you're like way into it. You're like hands, elbows deep in, and then you step away and you come back and you see it with fresh eyes. And then you're like, I see what I need to do now. Like sometimes that's just all we need to do. And having a fresh perspective, even from somebody that's not in construction all the time, can really be valuable in coming up with another solution. So don't feel like you can't have an opinion or an idea when it comes to your project and when it comes to your contractors, and the value of knowing your contractors. So don't cut corners. Don't try to nickel and dime these guys. I do want you to be conscious about your budget. I'm not saying just hire the most expensive guy and say, or girl, because this is we are equal girl power. But I'm saying make sure these people jive with you and you guys are vibing, because if you're not and you're in it now and you're like, man, I'm just giving this person a bunch of money and I don't see any movement, now you're ruining your budget. Okay, your budget's gone and you don't have another option. So you want to make sure you got the people that in there that you trust. You want to have those solution-based people, and making sure you're not just cutting corners and trying to get the cheapest person in there to get the job done, unless you really are looking for subpar work. I mean, because that's really what you're going to get. But that doesn't mean going for the highest one. So if you want more tips, reach out to me. I would love to hear what you got to say. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have specific questions when it comes to like setting that budget, let's talk about it. Also, I want to let you know that I'm going to be promoting a new course that is for pre-renovation prep course. So if you like what I've had to say so far, you find it helpful, and you want to learn more, please follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. It's at Hello Katie Go. And you'll find the email list so you can be the first one to find out when Blueprint to Build comes out. All right, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for hanging out today. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you hit subscribe. And I hope to see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.